Usually, when we talk about building a house, there's this absolute expectation of physical precision. You rely on engineering.
Right, yeah. Tangible materials, things you can actually measure or, hit with a hammer.
Exactly. You pour a concrete foundation, you frame the walls with timber or steel, and eventually the architect hands you a literal physical blueprint.
And the builder just points to a structure and says, well, there it is.
Yeah, wood, concrete, glass, it's clean. I mean, it makes logical sense to our everyday brains.
Yeah.
But when you step into the world of celestial cultivation, specifically through the lens of the framework we are unpacking today, that physical blueprint completely vanishes.
It really does. It just disappears.
We are suddenly looking at an architectural landscape built entirely out of, how closely you pay attention to a single blade of grass.
Yeah, it is the absolute definition of a consciousness-based reality.
Totally. So welcome to another deep dive. Today, we are immersing ourselves in a highly specific, really fascinating worldview presented in a document titled Chapter of Celestial Cultivation, Article 6, Nurturing the Spirit of Heaven and Earth, Loving Nature and the Rivers and Mountains. And it's authored by Suifeng.
It's a remarkably dense text, and it frames our relationship with the natural world in a way that's, frankly, pretty startling.
It is, and the mission for this deep dive is to really figure out the actual mechanics of this philosophy. Because in this framework, loving nature isn't just about, environmental conservation.
Right, it's not recycling.
No, not at all. And it's not about finding inner peace on a weekend hike to lower your blood pressure either. It is presented as the literal mechanical blueprint for achieving eternal life.
And reaching very specific celestial realms. It doesn't frame nature as a hobby or even a moral duty. It's the ultimate inescapable prerequisite for cosmic survival.
Like, if you want an afterlife, you have to gather the materials right now with your eyes and ears.
Exactly.
So let's jump straight into the deep end here. Because the foundation of this entire philosophy starts with a claim that just completely flattens how we understand our place in the universe.
It really pulls the rug out from under human ego.
It does. The premise is that all things in heaven and earth, basically all of nature, are direct manifestations and components of the Tao.
And the author doesn't leave any room for ambiguity or exception here. The Tao, in this context, is the fundamental underlying reality of the universe. It's the source code.
The source code, right.
Yeah. And the argument is that from bacteria in the dirt to massive celestial bodies spinning out in space from a single plant to an entire mountain range, everything is an equal manifestation of that exact same source code.
Okay, let me unpack this because I want to make sure I'm fully wrapping my head around that. So are we talking about a complete lack of hierarchy?
Complete. Zero hierarchy.
Because, human beings are incredibly conditioned to view the world as a pyramid, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We put ourselves at the top as the VIPs of the universe. Maybe, dolphins and dogs are a few steps down. And bacteria is at the absolute bottom.
Yeah, but what's fascinating here is that this hierarchy is exactly what this framework is trying to destroy. It explicitly argues that between heaven and earth, there is nothing noble, nothing lowly, nothing useless.
Nothing to be discarded.
Exactly. Your value, fundamentally, is identical to the bacteria and identical to the galaxy.
Man, identical. I can see how that totally dismantles human exceptionalism. But mechanically speaking, why is that flattening necessary? Why do I have to view myself as perfectly lateral to a microbe to achieve spiritual growth?
Because hierarchy creates separation. Think about it, if you place humanity at the top of a pyramid, you're automatically defining yourself as separate from the rest of the structure.
Right, you're the boss.
Exactly. You are the observer, the manager, maybe the conqueror. You cannot merge with something you believe you dominate.
Oh, wow, that makes a lot of sense.
So recognizing our total undeniable equality with a rock or a river is the required first step. Until you accept that you are entirely integrated, just another cell in the exact same cosmic body, you basically cannot cultivate what the author calls the spirit of heaven and earth.
Which opens up, honestly, a really intense, almost dangerous line of logic.
How so?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. If we are perfectly equal to and seamlessly integrated with all of nature, if there's literally zero boundary between us and the environment, then our behavior toward the outside world isn't just about the outside world, right?
Right.
It must have an immediate internal consequence.
It absolutely does. The philosophy treats it as a stark, literal mathematical equation. It says selfishness is self-destruction, and self-destruction is selfishness.
Wow, it really doesn't mince words. But how exactly does it define that selfishness?
Selfishness in this framework is acting as if you are separate from the whole. It argues that a person who lacks the spirit of heaven and earth will inevitably act recklessly. They'll treat nature as just, a resource to be exploited.
Just raw materials.
Yeah. And the consequence isn't just a fine or a bad conscience. The text warns that a person who doesn't love nature becomes fundamentally misaligned, ultimately facing nature's retribution. They devolve.
And the imagery used to describe this connection is incredibly visceral. Like, it doesn't say the rivers and mountains are like our home or that we should just be nice to them.
No, it's much more literal.
It claims that nature, the rivers, and the mountains literally are our hair, skin, flesh, bones, and blood vessels.
It redefines self-preservation entirely. The external environment literally is your physical anatomy.
Which is just a massive leap from how we usually think. I mean, in our modern world, it's so easy to say, let's save the whales or let's protect the rainforest out of like charity or a sense of stewardship.
A moral high ground.
Exactly. But this framework implies something much more immediate and severe. If the rivers are your blood vessels, then polluting a river isn't an environmental crime. It's akin to knowingly injecting poison into your own artery.
It entirely removes the luxury of distance. Loving nature is quite literally loving yourself, because that boundary you perceive between self and nature, it's an illusion. It's a glitch generated by a flawed human ego.
Okay, so if destroying the environment is literal self-harm, what is the alternative? How do we actually cultivate this spirit of heaven and earth? Like, what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, it requires achieving a very specific state of consciousness. The text describes it as having a vast, boundless, and magnanimous heart. The main metaphor used is an ocean that embraces thousands of rivers.
I really like that image. An ocean doesn't, interrogate a river to see if it's worthy. It just completely absorbs it.
Precisely. It's a transcendent spirit that is completely free from the limitations of the individual self, space, and time. The author actually says cultivating this gives you a Buddha vision.
Buddha vision. Okay, break down what that means for us practically.
It's the mechanical ability to perceive both the infinitely small and the infinitely vast simultaneously, but this is key, without valuing one over the other.
So going back to the bacteria and the galaxy.
Exactly. You can look at the intricate detail of a single grain of sand and fully comprehend the massive scale of a solar system and see them as identical expressions of the Tao. The framework also refers to this as achieving a spirit of Hundan.
Hundan. Now, that's a concept with really deep roots in ancient Chinese mythology and philosophy, right?
Right.
Usually, I think it translates to sort of primordial chaos or like unformed potential.
Yeah, that's spot on. In this specific context, Hundan represents the state of reality before human beings started making all these artificial distinctions.
Right, before we started labeling things.
Before we decided what was good or bad or useful or useless. It's the spirit of merging oneself back into the infinite universe. And the ultimate benefit of awakening this state is that you stop wasting your energy on the artificial drama of rank, status, and survival.
It sounds incredibly peaceful, but the text also drops a very heavy warning here. It states that achieving this state prevents unnecessary worry, sure, but crucially it allows you to avoid being eliminated by the laws of life.
Eliminated by the laws of life. Capital L-I-F-E.
Right. That implies there is a cosmic sorting mechanism at play. Nature isn't just a passive backdrop for us to hang out in, it's an active filter.
It's a very active filter.
And that brings us to, honestly, the most demanding part of this entire philosophy. Because achieving this immense ocean-like Hundan spirit, it isn't a matter of downloading a meditation app and just taking a few deep breaths on your lunch break.
Not at all. It requires enduring an intense, ongoing, and frankly brutal process of refinement. The author quotes a poem to illustrate the mechanics of this. It goes, "The grass on the vast plains withers and flourishes year after year. Wildfires cannot destroy it. With the spring breeze, it grows again."
Wow. So we're talking about nature's unforgiving cycles of purification. The wildfire literally burns away the dead wood so new growth can happen.
Yeah, and humans are not exempt from those wildfires. In fact, if you want to become a celestial being in this framework, you have to purposefully walk into the fire. You have to continuously eliminate your old self.
Let's talk about what eliminating the old self actually entails, because this is where the philosophy gets, well, pretty extreme.
It does.
When it says eliminate the old self, it means stepping out of everything that constitutes a normal human life. It specifically lists stepping out of family, stepping out of the nation, stepping out of religion, politics, and just entirely the fixed thought patterns of the human world.
It demands total, absolute detachment from every societal structure that defines your earthly identity.
Wait, stepping out of family. That sounds incredibly isolating, almost anti-human even.
It's a hard pill to swallow.
Right. Like, I can understand dropping political affiliations, sure, but how can a philosophy centered on universal love and the spirit of heaven and earth ask you to just abandon your own children or your own parents?
That is the natural human reaction, and it's a really vital question. To understand the logic, you have to go back to the idea of zero hierarchy we talked about earlier. Family, by its very nature, is an exclusive category. It dictates that you love these specific people more than the stranger on the street. A nation dictates that you value these specific borders more than the neighboring ones.
Oh, okay, I see where this is going. By prioritizing your family, you are inherently creating a hierarchy.
Exactly, you are drawing a boundary. And in a framework where the ultimate goal is to become an ocean that accepts all rivers equally, any boundary is a roadblock.
Right.
If you favor your child over another or your country over another, you are basically failing to view the universe with that equalizing Buddha vision. The wildfire has to burn away your localized attachments so your love can become truly universal. Only by doing this can one attain the Taoist state of harmony between heaven and man.
But practically speaking, I mean, what is left of you? If I detach from my family, my country, my deeply held beliefs, doesn't that just leave me as a completely empty shell? It feels like an erasure of the self.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the author would argue you're confusing the shell for the pearl inside. It's not about becoming a blank slate, it's about becoming an infinite canvas. If your identity is tied exclusively to being a mother, a father, an American, or an engineer, your consciousness is trapped in a tiny, temporary box.
So, by transcending those ordinary human perspectives, you aren't losing anything. You are supposedly gaining access to the entire system.
That's the promise. You reach a state where you no longer grieve over decline or rejoice in prosperity because you recognize the wildfire and the spring breeze are both just necessary turns of the exact same wheel.
You stop riding the exacting emotional roller coaster of human attachments.
Right. The goal is to trade a temporary human identity for eternal cosmic integration. The text specifically capitalizes the word life, stating the aim is to extend your life into infinite time and space.
You know, it's like you're upgrading your operating system from a fragile local hard drive that will eventually crash directly into the infinite cloud.
That analogy is actually perfect for the final phase of this process.
Because once you've survived the wildfire, once you've shed your societal constraints and achieved this Hundan spirit, you aren't just left floating in an empty void. This framework has very specific architectural goals. It provides geographic and spiritual destinations.
Yes. It requires an absolute belief in the existence of layered celestial realms. Specifically, it mentions the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, and the Elysium world.
The granularity is just fascinating to me. Within the Elysium world, it specifically highlights the Celestial Islands continent. It's not just some hazy, abstract concept of heaven. It is an archipelago in a specific celestial tier.
But the truly radical part is the methodology for getting there. Earning your place on these celestial islands isn't about being a good person in the traditional moral sense.
No.
It's not about avoiding sin. It is a highly specific, almost mechanical practice of sensory data collection.
Yes. This is easily the most mind-bending part of the entire framework. To reach these realms, you must rigorously observe, listen to, and appreciate every single natural detail around you right now.
Every blade of grass.
Exactly. Every flower, the shifting of the wind, the rain, the snow.
It is entirely active. You aren't just taking a leisurely stroll through a garden. The text dictates that you must strive to imprint all the true, good, beautiful, and loving phenomena of nature directly into your consciousness.
And the reason why you imprint them is what makes it so unique. You imprint them so they can literally be replicated or copied later in the Celestial Islands.
It's basically taking high-resolution mental photographs.
Yeah. You aren't just enjoying a beautiful sunset, you are gathering the raw, foundational source code required to build your own afterlife.
It completely flips our understanding of what an afterlife is. You are not migrating to a pre-constructed paradise managed by a deity. You are acting as the architect.
Wow.
You have to collect the sensory data from the earthly realm to physically render your reality in the celestial realm. If your mental hard drive is empty, you literally have no materials to build with.
The text gives a stunning example to prove this point, actually. It mentions a figure named Super Celestial Being You on Snow Peak Island.
Right.
It explains that her mystical arts, like her magical abilities to create and manifest things, stem entirely from meticulously observing, imitating, and internalizing the myriad aspects of nature down here on Earth.
The authors is explicit about this. Without fundamentally understanding how nature manifests its beauty in the physical world, you cannot attain her level of mystical power in the celestial world. Divine mastery is grounded entirely in earthly observation.
And the framework pushes this data collection concept even further into territory that sounds surprisingly modern. It actually endorses looking at visual media, beautiful images to prepare your subconscious for this building process.
It validates secondary observation, which is fascinating.
It does. The author specifically praises viewing images titled "The Heavenly Kingdom is So Delightful." And it notes these images were reposted by entities called Wanian Celestial, Penglai Celestial, and Kanghai Celestial.
Right.
The argument is that if you deeply imprint these visual scenes into your subconscious mind, it actively lays the foundation for your journey to the thousand-year world.
This raises an important question, though, because let's unpack the mechanics of that. It's a brilliant intersection of ancient spiritual mindfulness and digital logic. It treats the human mind exactly like a machine learning model.
Oh, totally.
Think about how we train AI. You feed an AI millions of images of beautiful landscapes so that eventually it can generate its own beautiful landscape from scratch.
Yes, you are feeding your soul a curated data set.
Exactly. Imprinting, copying, archiving. It validates the use of visual media, literally reposted JPEGs or artwork, as a legitimate tool to condition the subconscious.
An incredible.
It's an active, relentless pursuit of beauty. You aren't trying to escape the physical world to find heaven. You are trying to perfectly archive the physical world within your soul so you can unpack it later.
Archiving the world in your soul. That perfectly captures the magnitude of what this framework demands. Man, we have covered an immense amount of philosophical ground today, and tracing the logical through line of this text is quite a journey.
It requires completely dismantling how we operate on a daily basis.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, we started with the radical flattening of reality, recognizing our zero hierarchy equality with a microscopic bacterium. We learned that the mountains and rivers aren't just a pretty backdrop, they are our physical bones and blood vessels.
Meaning selfishness toward nature is literal self-harm.
Right. Then came the crucible. The requirement to walk into the refiner's fire and shed everything that makes us safely human, our families, our nations, our politics, in order to attain the vast, boundaryless spirit of heaven and earth.
And finally, arriving at the profound task of cosmic architecture. The mandate to use our time on Earth to collect sensory data, imprinting every beautiful blade of grass and curated image.
So we have the raw materials to construct our own celestial islands in the afterlife.
It is a framework of staggering scale. It's dealing in infinite time and space, yet it completely hinges on the microscopic details of what you choose to pay attention to right now.
And that is exactly why this deep dive matters for you, the listener. Even if you don't personally subscribe to the existence of the Elysium world or, believe that you will literally manifest a celestial island out of your own consciousness,
Sure.
this text offers a radically intense, high-stakes lens for how you interact with the world today.
It elevates the simple act of paying attention to the level of the divine. Observation isn't just a mindfulness exercise, it's the core mechanism of spiritual evolution.
Which circles us all the way back to our opening idea about blueprints. Usually you need a physical schematic to build a house. But this philosophy suggests the blueprint for your eternal future is being drawn right this second by what your eyes and ears are taking in.
The architecture of your consciousness is built exclusively from the data you consume.
So we want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to mull over. If our ultimate evolutionary potential, our entire future existence in celestial realm, relied entirely on our ability to meticulously observe and internalize the intricate, beautiful details of nature right now, how much of our own Elysium world are we failing to build because we spend our days staring down at our screens?
It's a really sobering question. If our primary purpose is to act as an archive for the beauty of the earth, what happens when our archives are just filled with infinite mindless scrolling?
Yeah. Is our collective lack of attention to nature not just a modern bad habit, but the ultimate spiritual failure? Are we forgetting to gather the lumber for our own celestial home? Something to chew on the next time you step outside and feel the wind on your face. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We've loved exploring these massive ideas with you, and we'll catch you next time as we continue unpacking the fascinating concepts that shape our world. Take care.